presented by the Strong Blue Line Foundation and powered by Moose Ridge Coffee in Snake River Landing, Idaho Falls. Welcome to the podcast, where former San Antonio police officer, author, and pastor Tim Rupp walks you through real-life scenarios involving our police officers and digs into the depths of facts and opinions on each case. This is Cop Talk, and it starts now.
Well, hello and welcome to the Strong Blue Line's Cop Talk. I'm Tim Rupp in beautiful western Arkansas. Still down here, Gary.
Yes, you are, Tim Rupp.
Got about another month to go, man. Here it is. Can't believe it's the end of February already.
I know. It seems like it's just flown by.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't introduce that man on the other. That's Gary Austin, the operations manager at the Rev.FM. He is in studio in Idaho Falls, and I'm in western Arkansas. I've been down here. If you've been listening to the show, been down here for almost 2 months now.
Yeah.
In this area and doing some things. We were talking, Gary, about what's going on. Of course, you know, Sherry and I are doing seminars. Have a couple engagements to speak at churches to present the Strong Blue Line Foundation. And while we were here, we were able to do already two church security seminars.
Oh my goodness!
I really hadn't planned on doing, because our ministry really targets law enforcement officers and law enforcement chaplains, but we do some other things as well. And but these seminars, I mean, the one in Pottsville had like almost 75 people at it.
That is fantastic.
And then the one in Louisiana was the same thing. I mean, unbelievable how many people want to come out to these church security seminars. And that's in fact what we've been talking about the last couple of shows is the threats to the homeland, and then specifically threats to churches.
Yeah, and it's such an importance.
It is, and we've been seeing since President Trump has taken over and the Homeland Security and all that stuff, and we've seen many people already identified and arrested and are deported, and a lot of them are just here for no good reason than to wreak havoc in America.
That's right. Yep.
And so, well, we've said we don't want to be fear mongers, but we need to be judicious and aware of our surroundings, and if something happens or we see something that's suspicious, report it, take action, call the police if necessary, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, no, that's all really good stuff. Very, very important.
Yes, it is. So we're going to finish up today, Gary, talking about church security and that kind of stuff. And we're going to look at some practical things that if you are on church security, perhaps you go to a church that doesn't have security, you need to maybe talk to the leadership there about it, or just there are a lot of resources that they can use. Of course, one of the resources is Pistol to the Pulpit, a book I wrote that really addresses church security and should churches have armed teams in a church.
Mm-hmm.
And how to select that team. It goes through a lot of stuff. So that book is available online on Amazon. It's available print, digital, and through print media. So, but that's just one source. There's a lot of different resources out there. But before we get into that, Gary, let's talk about the officers that want to honor that were killed in the line of duty this day in history. Of course, today is February 26th. So I have Constable Wyatt Outlaw.
Huh.
Now, I thought that was an unusual, and this name is going to be more unusual as I read through and we get to the end, and I'll tell you why it's unusual. But here's a constable named Outlaw.
Okay.
Wyatt Outlaw. Graham Police Department, North Carolina, end of watch Saturday, February 26, 1870. So here we are, North Carolina in 1870. It says Wyatt Outlaw was appointed as constable to Graham to organize night patrols to prevent a KKK-like group known as the White Brotherhood from conducting midnight rides of intimidation around the courthouse square. After his appointment, the group of masked riders made one of their rides. Someone shot at the group. Although it's not known who fired at him, a rumor was started that it was Constable Outlaw. On the night of February 26, 1870, a group of approximately 60 masked men. So this wasn't a small group of, 4 or 5 guys.
No.
This was 60 guys riding,
Yeah, in
masked,
1870.
And they broke down Constable Outlaw's door. They went to his house, broke down his door, forcefully entered and took him from his home. In retaliation, they hanged him from a tree outside the courthouse.
Wow.
Yeah, this is straight up premeditated murder of a police officer.
It sure is. That's ridiculous.
And, get this, Gary. Several men were indicted for Constable Outlaw's murder, but none were ever tried.
Oh my goodness.
They didn't go to trial.
Oh.
Okay, and here's the kicker. The 50-year-old Constable Outlaw was an escaped slave who enlisted in the United States Colored Troops, 2nd Cavalry, during the Civil War. He is survived by his wife, 2 children, and a mother.
Wow.
So, what gets me about that, now, I'm not sure in this case, but a lot of slaves, they didn't have last names. They were brought over, and they were just, they went by their first name. And a lot of them, they took names after they were freed.
Oh.
That's why a lot of our Black Americans have the name Washington and Jefferson and things like that, because they named themselves after American heroes that they liked.
I'll be darned.
So I don't know if Outlaw named himself that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it becomes Constable.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not really sure about that, but I thought that was kind of an interesting, but it's just a horrific incident.
That is horrific. I thought you were going to say something about Wyatt Earp, or something,
Oh yeah, and I think that would have been the time that Wyatt Earp. I think that was before Wyatt became popular. Though,
I think
that was
so
later.
too.
I think that was like 1880s.
Yeah.
When Wyatt Earp became popular. So, but he had the old cowboy name Wyatt, and then Outlaw. So.
And then Outlaw. That is an interesting story. Yeah. Huh.
Anyway, who do you have, Gary?
Well, this is Police Officer Dominic Jared Wynnum, Stanley Police Department out of Virginia, end of watch Friday, February 26th, 2021. So Police Officer Nick Wynnum was conducting a traffic stop, and an occupant of the vehicle got out and opened fire on Officer Wynnum before he was even able to get out of his patrol car. So the subject fled the scene after the shooting, and he was located hiding in a barn a short distance away. But the suspect was shot and killed as he attempted to reach for a weapon as deputies and other officers attempted to take him into custody. So Officer Wynnum, he served with the Stanley Police Department for 5 years and had previously served with the Virginia State Police for 10 years. So survived by his wife, 4 children, and a granddaughter. 48 years old, so his tour was 15 years. But, yeah, just, man, you just don't know. Another one of those situations you just...
And that when I hear that, it reminds me of when I'm driving. I always pull my seatbelt off before I stop my truck or whatever vehicle I'm in. Even if I'm riding as a passenger in someone's vehicle, I know Pastor Ty notices this all the time. If I ride somewhere with him, as we get into the parking lot, I take my seatbelt off, and he just smiles. He says, "Typical cop." And the reason why we do that is you don't want to get caught in your car.
Oh.
And so, like this officer, before he was able even to get out, he made a traffic stop. So that means he pulled over, and the car stopped in front of him. The guy bailed out, got it, and ran back there and shot the officer. Now, I'm not saying that he had his seatbelt on and he couldn't get it off in time. I'm not saying that at all. I don't know what happened to this officer. but it's just one of the tactical things that officers do is we'll take off our seatbelts, when we're slowing down, we're approaching a call or something, just in case that kind of thing happens. If you have to get out, you're not hindered by a seatbelt. So my wife's always getting on to me. Why are you taking your seatbelt off, Tim? It's against the law.
Yeah.
So,
and that's also another safety thing is that's why officers park at an angle behind somebody.
Yeah,
correct?
Right. Yeah, we park at an angle for a couple of reasons. One, if you had to get out and the person engages you and you're in a firefight with them, you want to be able to use your vehicle for cover as much as possible. That's one thing. But more likely is you want to park in such a way that you get out and you're talking to the person. If a car coming along the road behind you won't hit the officer. Oh. So there's a couple reasons why you want to park, and you want to park tactically if you can at all. Sometimes you just can't do it. It depends on the situation, but you always want to try to park tactically. So there's reasons why police officers do things. There's reasons why you get flooded with lights and you get shined in the eye with a flashlight when you're stopped by an officer. Right. And it may look like they do it unintentional, but I'm pretty sure it's intentional.
Absolutely.
Just so the officer has an upper hand any way he or she can. So. Yep. Officers always have to be thinking tactically. Right. Anyway, thinking tactically and stuff, let's jump into this. So we started talking a couple of weeks ago now about churches being attacked. And we talked about these incidents where both in Virginia and California where some people were there apparently doing a recon a couple of churches, asking about things, and they were confronted by the safety team, our staff, and reported to the police. And I got to think about this, Gary. These are 3 incidents, actually. There were 2 in California. 2 in Virginia, 1 in California. But these are just the ones that were reported that we know about. So, we don't know how many other surveillance was taken care of, and we never know about them. Mm-hmm. So it's the same, but we talked about that. We talked about the purpose of safety teams, what safety teams ought to be doing. Right. And then we left off where it says approaching suspicious individuals with discernment. And this comes from an article by Keith Graves, he's a retired police officer, and Mr. Graves, he does this as a business. He gives churches advice and counsel. So this is another resource, and I can't think of what his website is. Oh, it's ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Yeah. ChristianWarriorTraining.com. So if you're on a security team and you want information, that's a good resource. I've been on his website. He really has a good resource. But anyways, he talks about how to engage somebody that you're approaching. And he talks about this here. Number 1, he says, approach with courtesy. Because remember, we're talking about people who are coming to church. And we are church, and the churches need to be welcoming. And because 99.9% of the people who are going to churches go there because they want to attend a church service. Mm-hmm. They want to worship or whatever it is. So you have to approach with courtesy. And he says this: begin with a friendly demeanor. Introduce yourself and ask if they need assistance. For example, hi, I'm part of the safety team here. Can I help you find something? And Gary, I think that's a really good approach.
I do too.
Because it does something here. First of all, you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm part of the safety team. Right there, you're telling them you're friendly. But we've got a safety team here. You're not saying security team, and I use the same language that he uses, a safety team. Mm-hmm. And then it says, "Can I help you find something?" So
I like that. That's good.
And so it gives them a chance to respond. It says this. It said, "Avoid direct accusations or aggressive questioning, as this can escalate the situation unnecessarily." Which is true, because most of the times, if a church has a problem with somebody, Gary, it's usually a domestic deal. And it's usually where there's a divorce or a breakup or a separation, and the guy comes and he's wanting to find the female, but if you ask it like this, you can find out what you're looking for without being mean about it and unnecessarily accusing somebody that you may be totally wrong about.
Mm-hmm.
He says this, number 2, use observational questions. Ask open-ended questions to gather information without being confronted, such as, are you visiting for the first time? What brings you to church today? Now, are you visiting for the first time? That's not open-ended. That's yes or no.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised he said that.
Yeah.
But he says, what brings you here to church today? That's an open-ended question.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I ask you, Gary, is this your first time? Yes. No. That's it. 1 or 2 answers.
Mm-hmm.
If I said, what brings you here today? Well, if somebody's there for nefarious reasons, they've got to think of some excuse. And so they're going to pause, they're going to think, and that's going to give you some visual cues about some things. So it's important. He says, pay attention to their responses and body language, which may provide valuable insights. So that's some very good advice there.
Really
Number
is.
3, he says, maintain a calm and neutral tone. This is critical. Even if the person seems evasive or defensive, stay calm and professional.
Mm-hmm.
This approach reduces the chance of conflict and assures the interaction remains controlled. It's important to do this too, Gary. Most churches nowadays, or I should say a lot of churches, I can't say most, a lot of churches have security cameras. We do have Water Springs. If you're on Water Springs, smile.
Yeah.
Because you're on camera, okay? just know that. And we like that because, and when somebody's dealing with somebody, especially if a safety team or a pastor or one of the church workers are dealing with somebody and then they go complain, it's all on video.
Mm-hmm.
So we can see who was at fault and who wasn't.
Right.
Number
Very
4,
important.
that's good. Trust your instincts and discernment. Use spiritual discernment and common sense to evaluate the situation. If something feels off, it's better to involve a team member or contact law enforcement than to try to handle it alone. Again, that's very good advice. A lot of people say, well, what do you mean by this? If something doesn't feel right, or some people say, well, you have to have a sixth sense. Well, nobody has a sixth sense. There's no such thing as that. We know there are 5 senses. But sometimes we get a gut feeling. We're like, something doesn't feel right. Where does that come from? One of the things it may come from is God-given discernment that is given to you. So that very well may be it. Another thing, just as we live life, Gary, just as we get older, we have more life experiences, we interact with more and more people every day, we store memory of what's normal and how people act in a given situation. And when people respond other than what would be normal, we sense that. We're like something, we may not be able to articulate it, but that's what that sixth sense is, we call it. It's really not a sixth sense. It comes from experience.
Right. Exactly.
And so, experience, the more you experience other people, and the more you are intentional about studying people and studying normal habits, you'll be able to pick up what's not normal. So that's important. And then number 5, he says here, document the interaction. And we always harp on this, man. If it happened, write it down. Mm-hmm. Write it down, because you never know if there's a complaint later, if people come back, it's written down, we have a record of it. And leadership knows. Leadership gets copies of the report. So the pastor isn't blindsided by something. He already knows about what's going on.
Yep.
So these are some important things here. And then he says here about reinforcing the church's mission. And that's so important. We need to realize that, we talked about this before, the enemy is Satan. We know that. Now, Satan may use flesh and blood to carry out his sinister plans against the church. But the enemy is Satan. The focus is the gospel. We always need to remember that the focus of the church is the gospel message. And we don't want to treat people in a way unnecessarily that will hinder the gospel.
Right.
So there needs to really be a balance of being judicious and being protective of the flock, but yet being kind and nice and professional when you deal with people. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think for the most part, I mean, it's and you're an officer, a former officer as well, but I don't think that leaves your blood. As you talked earlier, you're undoing your seatbelt early, and there's just things that you do. You go to a restaurant, you're facing the exit, and that, all kinds of different things. And I love how. I kind of specifically in number 4 that you talked about, but don't handle it alone. If you have this sixth sense, as you spoke of, it is important to not handle it necessarily on your own, but it's the importance of the safety team. Is to discover things and keep the flock safe. And I like that.
Yeah, that's so important. And then he goes down. He asks why churches are targets. And he gives three reasons. And we think of it, it's pretty obvious. See, number one, symbolism. As centers of Christian worship, churches represent a direct challenge to radical ideologies that oppose Christianity. And so, and that could be somebody that's pro-abortion if a church takes a stance on pro-life. It could be because of radical Islam, and want to do away with Christians and stuff like that. Accessibility. Churches are often open to the public.
Yeah.
And for years, a lot of churches never had locks on their doors.
Right. That's true.
And you could go in. You can go in any time. You could show up at church 3:00 in the morning, open the door to the sanctuary, walk in there, and pray. Mm-hmm. And it used to be that way. Now it's not that way so much anymore. I mean, even now, a lot of times churches lock their doors during the service. And have people out there. If somebody comes, they can let people in, but because of what's going on. So another thing, potential impact. An attack on a church during a service could cause mass casualties, spread fear, and dominate global headlines. And they do. Well, we've seen headlines of churches who have been attacked across the world. I've got headlines of Pakistani churches have been attacked, Sri Lanka churches in Egypt. And so, you're going to get a lot of press. You're going to get a lot of terror, and that's what terrorists want to do. They want to spread terror and promote their
agenda.
Whatever their agenda, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's important for churches to have safety teams and to teach them and to train the safety teams and to enhance security systems. I was talking to some of these people in these churches, and they said, "Yeah, we used to have cameras, but we don't have them anymore." I'm like, cameras are so cheap. Just buy cameras and put them up.
Exactly.
And
I agree.
record things that they're not that expensive. Document suspicious activity. Build relationship with law enforcement. I encourage you guys, call your local agency. Most law enforcement agencies are more than willing to work with churches.
Yeah.
And very few don't. So if you get a hold of your law enforcement, your chief of police, if it's a smaller community, you probably talk to your chief direct, your sheriff, or one of their representatives, and they'll probably send people out to help you out.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the things that we've done at Water Springs and at my previous church, we let the police department, the sheriff's office, come in and do training in our buildings during the week.
Huh.
And so they get to do real training to someplace they may be dispatched to. Hopefully they never will. But it gives them, and, people see police cars around the church building. That doesn't hurt at all. So,
yeah. Yeah.
So, and you're building up a relationship with the officers and with the department or your local agency. So, hey Gary.
Hey Tim.
You look at that clock. What do you tell me about that clock?
Oh.
Yes.
Wow. What happened?
Yes. I don't know. We're out of time, bro. Hey. So And we're done with February, man. 2 more days and February is over with.
I know.
Time is flying already. Hey, thanks for listening in. If you have a topic or question you want to address on Cop Talk, send me an email. You can email suggestions, questions, comments, or complaints to coptalk@therev.fm. That's coptalk@therev.fm. Thought from the good book today. The Lord has told you what is good and what He requires of you. To do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Thank you for joining and helping us to make the thin blue line a strong blue line.
Cop Talk is presented by the Strong Blue Line Foundation and sponsored by Moose Ridge Coffee in Snake River Landing, Idaho Falls. Questions and comments are always welcome by email to coptalk@therev.fm. Listen, follow, leave a review, and share this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or YouTube. And visit thestrongblueline.org to learn how you can be a supporter. Cop Talk is a Rev FM production, produced and edited by Gary Austin. Thank you for joining us on Cop Talk.